Hi everyone, Scott Woods here from Hawk Ridge Systems. I'm the product manager for our technical communications suite, and that covers SOLIDWORKS Composure, Visualize, Inspection, and Model-Based Definitions, MBD. And today is the What's New for SOLIDWORKS Tech Comms. And we're going to be covering the highlights. We won't be covering every single thing that's new in these programs. We will be releasing a blog, so stay tuned for that, and we'll have that out as well that has everything, so you guys know all the little things. At the end, if there's extra time, I'll go ahead and I'll jump through some of the smaller things, but let's get to the important things first. Okay, so starting off here is model-based definitions. And what I'd like to show here is kind of just the highlights, the big things that have come out. And so if you guys are unfamiliar with what model-based definition is for SOLIDWORKS MBD, it's an add-in to SOLIDWORKS. So it doesn't work outside of SOLIDWORKS, so it does work natively within SOLIDWORKS, and it uses the existing Pdm expert data as a foundation to create all of the annotation views, and then combine that into either a PDF or an eDrawings template that you can then distribute. We can also view all this data, of course, natively directly in SOLIDWORKS without actually publishing it out. So there is that way of using it as well. So the big one today is sheet metal support, and this is huge. This is something that you guys have been asking for, and actually a lot of the what's new, most of everything that I see that came out this year, I actually seen as requests over the last year or two. So it's really good to see SOLIDWORKS actually taking those requests and putting them into action. And so I'm really proud to introduce a lot of these things that we've been waiting for a little while. So the first one here, sheet metal support. So let's go ahead and just show that. So before, we just literally had no sheet metal support in model-based definitions. It didn't work. It wasn't compatible. So now if I were to let's take the sheet metal panel here, and first off, check out the Pmi data on here. We'll be talking a bit about Pmi data today. One big part of another component of this package, which is Composure, will actually import this data. So now things like model-based definitions, inspection, and Composure, they work really well together because all of that data, it just goes across between the different options. So we got that data. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the tree here, and we see that this is sheet metal. So we got this flat pattern. So if I were to click on that and just say that we want to we're going to insert the bend notes, just like that, because I'm going to create a model-based definitions bend table, which we just couldn't do before. So here we got our bend notes. So we see, it's down, up. Here's our flat face here. And now we go ahead and we want to insert that table. So now we got this new table. So I'm in the model-based definitions. There's our table. And now we can go ahead and say we want a bend table. We'll say, define how you want that laid out. Yep, we'll go ahead and place it, and then we can go ahead and just place it how we want it. And so there we go. So now we have bend table with bend notes inside model-based definitions. So this is a big one if you have been waiting, kind of holding back on model-based definitions because we couldn't do bend notes, whatnot. It just, a lot of the sheet metal capability just wasn't in there, and now we have it. And of course, this is, every time something new comes out, I always like to say, we get it. It maybe isn't perfect, but we got it. And then now it's just a matter of kind of filling it out and improving it over the next year or so. So, the big part is there that we actually are able to now include these notes. And then, of course, we can add those 3D views by capturing that view and save that as a PDF and the eDrawings, and it's just really, really slick that we can do that now. The other part I'd like to show here, and I'll just switch up the model, just something a little bit more, I'll use this guy here, just something we can get some annotations on. I like this guy here. It has quite a few of this GD&T on here, and then we have various views with different angles and whatnot. So, and some notes. So it's a really good model just to show all those little caveats of model-based definitions. And so what you get with model-based definitions is the independent 3D views. be able to break those out with separate PMI on each. So like the first one doesn't have any data, and the right one has, this additional data and things like that. But what's new for model-based definitions here is that when I say publish to 3D PDF and I click on that, I get this, before it would just say, oh, choose your template and you set all your settings and you go to save it out. Well, now we get this preview here. Well, you know what? Let me close that. Let's choose, I'm gonna choose a different, well, actually, we'll just use this. Let me choose a different template here. And so let's close that. So let's go ahead and close that. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna reopen SOLIDWORKS and let's jump in and just reopen that part. But what I want to do is I want to choose my model-based definitions template, and then using that template, I will define some rules to it and say, oh, I want to password protect it, and I want to basically lock it down and protect that data so you can send it outside your company without worrying about losing that information. So just a little hiccup there, but we're back on track. So we got our 3D views, and now when I say model-based definitions and I say let's go ahead and publish that, this is what I was looking for. This was supposed to pop up last time. And I say browse, and what I can do here is so you can have templates in different locations, and you can just point to those templates. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm just pointing to an existing template that I have that I would like to use, and then that will be added to our list of templates, because there is a template editor with model-based definitions that we can use to fully modify the template and then use it. So let's go ahead and use that. And as soon as I say OK, it's going to give me a preview. And this is what's new for 2019 here, where previously it wouldn't do that. It would just, there it is. It would just, it wouldn't tell me exactly what it's going to look like. I had to kind of guess what it was going to look like before I actually published it. And now I have almost like a live feed saying, hey, this is actually what it's going to look like before you spend the time to push it out as a PDF. So there's a lot of benefit there just for time savings. So here, let's go ahead and say the thumbnail views I want in here, I'll go and add these guys there just by selecting them. And then I get the live preview update showing me the different, these different views, just like that. Okay, so now here, I'm going to talk about this a little bit. This is not new. This came out a couple of years ago. You just might not be aware of it. So let me go ahead and talk just a little bit about what a step 242 is. So did you know that a PDF file can have attachments? This was new to me a couple years back. I can say attach files, and I can go and I can select another drawing, a video, anything I want, and I can actually I can use a PDF file, kind of like a zip file, and I can attach files into it. I can do the same thing here. So if I wanted to, I could attach things, or I could say create and attach a step 242. And what that's going to do is it's going to take my model, it's going to convert it into a step file, and the step 242 supports Pmi data. So any of the dimensions, the annotations, the notes, all that stuff will actually be part of that step file. And right now it is basically visual data, but this is the first step toward the going full 3D. And eventually we're going to have a step file that actually will be able to read that into your CMMs and things like that. So that's your CNC. So that's the way things are going. It's just not quite there yet, but we got one step ahead of the game here, and we're prepared for that moment to come when machines and everything else catches up. So it's a really cool publication there. Accuracy, this is new in 2019. So you can choose to add the BREP data to your PDF, or you can choose to just add graphical data. If you do add BREP data, what that means is it's actually adding model data to the PDF. So that can be a little bit concerning if you're going to be sending the file overseas and you're worried about reverse engineering and things like that. So you can come in here and you can say, oh, I want to kind of denature the model. So by doing that, it makes it harder to reverse engineer, but maybe not impossible. Now, if you say show only graphical data, there's no BREP model data in the PDF, and so you can't actually extract a 3D model out of it. So it's just, you view it on screen, you can print it, that's all you can do. You can't measure it or anything like that. So with this, it's also going to make the footprint of the PDF a bit smaller. Not a huge amount, but it is going to reduce that. So it's going to increase performance if you are dealing with a large PDF or something like that. You got to email it. So really good benefits there as well. And then the last part I want to show here is the ability to kind of lock it down. So you see set following features with 3D PDF. You can disable printing, disable editing, disable copying. So people can't even make a copy of the file. They can't print it. You can password protect it. And so yeah, so just a lot more control, because prior to this, you know, you had this PDF and you know, it's like it has stuff to protect you, but this really goes to that next level of security to make sure that your data doesn't get into the wrong hands. Okay, so there's that for what's new for model-based definitions. Switch back to this guy here, and let's go down to the inspection. Okay, so now I'm switching gears a little bit. I'm going from our model-based definitions software to our inspection software. And if you're unfamiliar with inspection, when you purchase inspection, you get two versions of the software that they come together. They're not separate. They're not separated by cost or anything like that, I should say. So you get both a standalone application. This is an application you can install on any machine. It has lower system requirements. It doesn't need an engineering station to install because it's just reading PDFs. So it's much less when it comes to performance needed. You don't need to have SOLIDWORKS installed on that machine, and you don't even have to own SOLIDWORKS. So even if you didn't own SOLIDWORKS, you can still take this application, you can install it on the machine, and what it does is it reads in PDF files, and it uses what's called OCR on that. So it's optical character recognition, looks at the text, defines it, and creates the inspection reports off of that. Additionally, you also get an add-in for SOLIDWORKS. So if you are running SOLIDWORKS, it puts an add-in, installs an add-in to SOLIDWORKS that allows you to work directly with the SOLIDWORKS drawings, which is really beneficial because all of your information is in the drawing. It's all there as custom properties and as metadata, and you can utilize that to then automate the entire inspection process. And then if you're going to be using a CMM, reading that back in, you can export from the add-in to the standalone, reading your CMM data and automate that final process as well. So it's a pretty slick process. So let's talk a little bit about the standalone. And really, I just want to talk about how it is now fully integrated with PDM. So this is a big one. And it seems like a lot of things this year, you know, it's like, okay, well, let's integrate it with PDM. So of course, that makes total logical sense. So the standalone before was just the files, the PDFs and stuff were treated as generic files in PDM, but now it has full integration support. And as like a little extra bonus with that, it automatically populates your data card with your custom properties. So that's really neat as well. Let me go ahead and show what I'm talking about. Okay, so here is inspection. I currently don't have an inspection project loaded, but let's jump into the vault and let's pull one up. So if I say File, Open Project, you'll see that I can navigate into the vault. I can go here for, let's just go here. Just pull out one of these projects. So this guy here, this is a good one. Oh, you see it's not checked out, so I can right click now. I can check it out. I can check it in, I can check it out, I can get latest copy, things like that. So everything that you would expect from PDM, we can now do. It's going to open it up. And the stuff that's going to be put in the data card, if you go to the properties here, it's actually these properties right here. So you see like the part name, part number, part revision, and then we can do custom properties as well. And the data card, just like any other PDM data card, you can edit it and you can add in those custom properties. There's just a field for it, and you can automatically populate that data card. And the whole point of that is, you know, you have this data that resides in a PDF, and it's trapped there. You can't get it out. If you export it as a PDF or as an Excel file at the end, there's ways to pull the data from the Excel file, but in the PDF you can't. This just gives you another kind of vehicle for that information. So now in PDM, in the data card, we can have this data and we can reference that from outside sources, or just don't want to open up the project, you just check out the data card and get instant information. So it's just, again, another step in the right direction. So with that, if I now go to SOLIDWORKS PDM, I got a brand new tab for this. I can, let's make a change to the drawing. So let's say, let's use this guy here. So if I go to dimension, and let's go ahead and lock that down there. And I'm going to go ahead and dimension that guy there. By the way, little tip here in inspection, I think it captured it. Not quite. So I just like to show that with these kind of dimensions that you can actually use OCR on the dimensions here, and I can say, oh, that's that there, and click this here. I can say that is that there, and there we go. So we got our plus and minus 3 and 4, and it does our upper and lower limit. So now we've modified this inspection report. And say this was finished, we go ahead and export it and all that good stuff. I'll do that from SOLIDWORks. But then we're like, okay, I've modified, I fixed this report, it has what's needed, and now I can check it back into the vault. It's going to ask me to save it, of course, but if I go ahead and check in, so yes, I would like to save it. And then here, so we want to check in, and there we go. And now it's all revision controlled this way, and then go ahead and do that. So in my opinion, that's a huge step in the right direction for inspection. We want to be able to, record all that revision data, and now we can. Okay, so now let's jump into the add-in for inspection. Just back into SOLIDWORks. Because I had that little hiccup there, I lost the project I had open, so let me go ahead and reopen it up here. I had it open from the vault, but we'll just pull it direct. Let's take the part. I guess I could open up both at the same time, but this works too. All right, then we got the drawing. Okay, so how the inspection add-in works, and you just enable the add-in, of course, and then we have this new tab that says SOLIDWORKS Inspection. I'm ready to do my inspection report on this drawing here, and let me just pop right back to the PowerPoint so you can see what we're doing here. For the add-in, we have the custom template properties and whole table extraction. If you're not currently using inspection, this probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but let me explain to it, because both of these I've had requested multiple times, and then we relayed that back to SOLIDWORKS and they made it happen, which is really, really, really cool, in my opinion, that we actually made some stuff happen. So that's this is a good victory here for inspection. So we go back to the report here. I have a whole table. Before, we just couldn't inspect to that. It wouldn't see it. We'd have to bring it into the add-in and kind of do it as kind of a sideways method. And now it just works and works well. So I go new inspection project, use my template there. This here is the new area. So we've always had the properties here. So we could always say like part name, and let's choose, I don't know, we'll do maybe a custom property. We'll use the drawing title. Revision, there's the revision for the part, so forth. So you can just go ahead and you can use the metadata, the custom properties in SOLIDWORKS to populate all of this data. What we didn't have before is this custom property field here. And I know a lot of you have been asking for this. And so it's very, very beneficial. We can add this to the template, so it can be part of your standard process. I can add this data to the data card and add it directly in. But basically what you do is you add, there is a whole list, there's a huge list here of different things you can choose from. So you can say, what's the vendor number? I can go ahead and I can reference a value here, or I can just type in whatever it is. You can also go in here and you can just type in whatever you want. So like, I don't know, just test, just as an example. I'm just showing that we can type in whatever you want. So you can be totally custom, or you can choose from the drop down, and then this could be part of your standard project. So this is really big here. Now, if I go, this is all the same here, and if I go to the next page, I have additional little checkbox here for whole callouts. So we're going to include, we're going to auto explode. And that just auto explode just makes it so they're each in their own individual part number, or I'm sorry, bill of characteristic number. I've noticed from past experience with our customers, that's typically what is needed, but you can have the option to control that. So I'll include that now. By the way, if you've never used inspection here, you just say, hey, I want to include everything, or I want to just whatever's marked for inspection, reference or basic dimensions. So we can choose what we want, if you wanted the GD&T, if you wanted to do the notes, etc. So these are just checkboxes. This is an automated process within the add-in to get your inspection process completed and quick. So let me go ahead and just say next. Here's my tolerances, hit the checkbox. And so while that's processing, this the add-in, it's very, very powerful. It has a lot of good tools. The standalone does have additional features, and if you need to, let's say you need to like, you know, if you're running a CMM and you want to then take that CMM data, PCDMS data, or whatever it is, you want to push it back in and automate that the actual measurements, that has to be done in the standalone currently. So we would take this project we just made, we'd export this to inspection, open up in the standalone and do that. So just another step, but it takes a couple minutes. We just can't do that in the add-in currently. So I bet that's going to change though. Okay, so here it is. So we got the whole table. Zoom in here. We got our balloons. Here's our bill of characteristics here. And let me just take a little preview here. Oh, actually, this is new as well. Before the bill of characteristics in the add-in, it didn't look like this. It was more like it would list them out, but now it lists it out as you would see it in Excel. So it is much more like standard, what you would expect. So there's our whole callouts and then the various other measurements there. All right, so now I would export this. So I'm going to go ahead and export the Excel file. I'll use the AS9102. And let's put this, I'm just going to put it on the desktop. Looks like I already have one there. I'll just overwrite it. So we're going to export both the Excel file and the 2D PDF. I got too much going on there. I should have cleaned that up a little bit, but let's export that file as well. So let's just see if I can locate that real quick. There it is. All right, so we have our balloon PDF, and then we have our Excel file to compare that. And of course, if you wanted to automate the results with the CMM, that would be done in the standalone application. It's just a reading in the file, and then it connects it. Does a pretty good job. But if we do this manually, you just type in, you know, what the actual measurement was, and if it's out of tolerance, it's going to be red, and if it's within tolerance, let's say this 598, it'll be green, something like that. So there we go. That is inspection. Okay, so now let's go back to the PowerPoint here. Make sure we got everything. Yep, the whole table extraction and the custom template properties. Now we're taking a little bit of a switch up here, doing a little switch up here for SOLIDWORKS Visualize. So if you're unfamiliar with SOLIDWORKS Visualize, the next two is SOLIDWORKS Visualize and SOLIDWORKS Composure. And it's important to identify the differences between these next two applications. So Visualize is our photorealistic, ray traced, rendered. You know, it creates images like this. It creates animations. It creates VR content. You know, stuff with headsets. You can look around, but it's a real life render. So it's going to look just that photorealistic. It runs off both the graphics card, the GPU, and your processor, your CPU. It is very graphics card heavy. That's the whole point of it, is that it uses NVIDIA CUDA technology, including the new RTX cards, of course, and the GTX series, and it's able to, and then of course Quadro. I don't want to disclude that, of course, we got that. But it uses that graphics card to produce the graphical data, and it does a great job at that. But we have a really cool, in my opinion, the best thing that's come out, and you might have seen this already. There's a lot of posts in the forums that SOLIDWORKS got really excited and they released this a little bit early before to the 2019 release. So technically it came out in 18 at one point, but it's 10 times faster rendering. And what that is it's a artificial intelligence denoiser that you run, and it denoises the model, and it does a really good job. So we'll show that real time here. And then we have the ability to import Mdl and Pbr materials. So if you had a concern in the past or currently of importing the NVIDIA type of materials, the Autodesk type of materials, we can do that now. Before, it just wasn't compatible. But now we can use those materials in our renderings. You can't modify them, you can't change them, but you can use them. So if they already exist, you can use them. So that's a huge benefit there. And then we'll talk about physics. So I don't want to talk about that too much right now. We'll get back to that. It's quite cool. It has a lot of potential. It is brand new, but we'll show that live as well. Okay, so let's jump over to Visualize, and I just want to make sure I'm connected to the server. So with Visualize, and I think we are, yeah, I think we're good here. But so with Visualize, if you buy Visualize Pro, you get what's called Boost, and it's an additional application. It's a server software you can install on another computer, another server, and what it does is it allows you to basically steal the power of that other machine while you're working in Visualize, and also, of course, during working and then also rendering. So instead of using the power from one machine, you can use the power from 2, 3, 4, however many you want. Each one takes an additional Boost license, but you can node those together and you can use all that power. It's really, really cool. I wish that all applications had this capability, but it is pretty unique to Visualize here. So I'm connected to another machine. I just want to use that because I want to show the denoiser live. And the best way to do that is to connect to in the other computer. It's not super fast. It's a Dell 3600, so it's an older machine, but it has two GTX 1070 cards in it, 270 Ti cards, and that's what's running the power here. Okay, so let's show the denoiser. So if I were to, well, first of all, let's connect. Let's take 1 second. And now we're connected to the server. So now if I were to zoom in, let me try to get a good look at this here. So I set, so what I'm doing here is I set my top passes to 150. If you've ever done any renderings, you know that renderings typically start at like 400 passes, 400 to 500 passes, and then if you want like this real high quality rendering, you might do 1,000 or 1,500, maybe even 2,000 passes. Basically, every pass of the software cleans up the model more and more. You'll see right now I did 150 passes, which typically wouldn't even be considered for marketing or any kind of publications. 150 passes just isn't enough for quality. But this looks really good at 150, and that's the new denoiser I have turned on right now. And you can see a little bit, I see a little bit of noise going on here. Oh, it's actually turned off, and that's why I see the noise. So I noticed it just is disabled there. So you see here, let me go ahead and show this the second time here. So if I rotate it, that just refreshes the passes. Right now I have the denoiser turned off. So for 150 passes, I wouldn't consider this prime time. You see that the noise here looks like artifacts, like the pixelation going on. That's just because, to remove that, I'd probably want 500 passes, 1,000 passes, and it would remove that. Now, if I turn on the new denoiser, you'll see it's the same amount of time, so it doesn't take any more time to render, but in that same amount of passes, so you'll see already at 50 passes, it's looking really nice already. And we get 100, I don't even think we even needed 150, probably could have stopped at 100. And now you'll see that cleaned up. So let me show that again. So I'll just kind of pan it. See all the noise, and as soon as I let go, you see the passes, and it smooths it out like that. And it's already at 40, it's looking pretty good. Now, if I were to turn off the denoiser, you'll see that it's just that it takes a much longer to denoise the model to really clean it up and make it look photorealistic. About 100, 150, I probably would want to push that past, at least past 500. So SOLIDWORKS is saying, 10 times faster. And from my testing, that's very, very accurate. So sometimes it's 6 times, sometimes it's, maybe 5 times faster, depending on the complexity of the geometry, complexity of the materials. But I think at the end of the day, 10 times is a pretty good benchmark, because here is 150. Here without denoiser, we do that with denoiser. I would expect that to be closer to 100, maybe 12, or 1,000, maybe 1,200 passes to get the same result here. Okay, so that's the denoiser. Now, the last part of Visualize here is the physics. So bear with me, I'm still learning the physics. It is brand new, so it's not something that there's not a lot of documentation for or anything right now, but let me just go to, let's go to that guy right there, and we'll show this. So what it is it's really initially meant for the automotive industry. It allows you, and this is just, it's brand new. So this is what it's available right away, and it's available to everybody right now. So it allows you to take a vehicle, define its wheels, define its calipers, define its speed and its weight and its suspension. You can even do like the canting and things like that. So there's a lot of, it is geared toward automotive industry right now. and allows you to, let me turn that down so you can see it. But I can see this evolving into some really cool things. It does have real life physics, so you define the ground, you define your object. If you put the object above the ground and drop it, it will land on the ground. You can do a shake. So there's like, I've seen a couple examples of like a cup with pencils in it. You can shake it and you can make the pencils fly out and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it is pretty cool what it does, and it seems to be pretty legit. You know, it's just one of those things that is cool, and let's wait and see what it brings to the table. But the potential is there, and it's pretty exciting. Okay, so let me quit talking here and show it. So let me go ahead and want to zoom out so we can see it. Then something like that. I just want to be able to see this guy moving. Now I'm going to go ahead and define that I want to select the model. And this is how it says. If you guys want to test this, you want to make sure that you're on model select mode. You select the model. Once the model is selected, there's a new physics tab. So you go to physics, and then you can define, you know, this is a car, which is what, of course, what this is here. If I said like a dynamic, or static, if I made a static model, you can do like make an object like a cube and say that's static, it's not moving, and another object that's dynamic, it's going to move, and then you can crash the model into the cube, and it's going to stop basically, kind of like yeah. So we'll say that this is a car. There is a vehicle wizard, and there is an automatic mode setup. You know, it's new, automatic, probably not ideal yet. That's assuming that your car's set up perfectly. The manual mode, I already have this set up here, but you define the models. You just select that in the tree. You select it on the model here. You define your models for the right wheel, for the front right, rear left, front left. You know, pretty standard stuff. And then you define your calipers. And that's important too. So they know that those aren't going to spin with the tires, right? But they're going to turn with the tires, but they're not going to spin. Okay, so with that, we have our physics design, our car defined, what parts are going to be moving, and then we'll say, okay, what do we want to do? Do you want to use a controller? So you can use a controller and you can move it and you can drive it around, kind of like a video game. You can have it drive straight. I'm gonna have it turn. I just want to have it turn and drive in a circle here, so you can specify that. And it looks like from what I can tell, it only turns right. So the turn isn't like turn right, turn left. It just turns. From what I can tell, it turns right. So if you want to turn left, I'd probably do the controller. Okay, and then for the vehicle type, this is pretty cool. So you can specify like what kind of car it is, and so it has, it has predefined attributes that you can modify so the car behaves differently. Let's make this, it's pretty heavy, but let's make it a sports car, sure. And you'll see that the mass has changed, acceleration, and the torque and whatnot. So all of this is completely controllable, and you can get dialed in exactly what you're looking for. So with that said, let's go ahead and hit go in the physics. And keep in mind, this is going to be slow, because this is real-time physics, but you can record this as a video, and then you can see it in in actual time. Right now, it's going to be much slower than it should be because it's running the calculations. So this car now is going to go around a corner. We can see the suspension going, and it's so far just doing a donut. It is really doing a donut. And I think I got stuck in some mud there. So, but yeah, you'll see. It's pretty cool. I mean, this is not an animation. This is not pre-canned. This is not a video. This is actual physics live, and I can take this and I can look at it from different angles while it's doing its thing, and it's going to keep going. So it's really cool. Excited to see this evolve. And we'll just stay tuned. And as this gets cooler, we'll have videos and we'll announce it, and we'll show you everything that comes out and different uses that we find for this. Because I know not everybody makes cars, right? So we'll figure out ways to apply this across multiple industries. And I think it's there. It's the potential. It's brand new. We just gotta play with it and find uses for it. Okay, so let's go and stop that. And last on the list here is Composure. So let's jump back here, and we got, and this is, if you guys have worked with me in the past, you know that I've been with Composure for a long time. This is my my program I've had the longest. I've been with it since the beginning, and so I'm really excited to announce some cool stuff that we just got. And we got full Pdm integration, which is outstanding. I know a lot of people have asked for that. We've come up with interesting workflows to get around it, and we've always made it work, right? So it's not like we couldn't do that before, but now it's integrated. Now it's seamless, it's simple, and it works. And then we have Pmi support. So that's a huge one. We've been trying to get that for a long time. And so, you know, we have model-based definitions that uses Pmi from SOLIDWORKS. So basically, SOLIDWORKS creates Pmi. So Pdm Expert out of the box, it creates Pmi data. Model-based definitions allows us to use that Pmi data and create 3D PDFs. And it's like, well, we got this data, let's also be able to bring that into Composure and use it in our technical documentation, into our assembly manuals. It's just good data that was just being thrown out. And it's like, let's use that data. Why are we throwing it out? Why are we recreating it? So now we can pull that in, we don't have to recreate it. So that's just huge. And then we'll get into other things like lock views and 3D library tools. And if we have a little bit of time, I'll throw in a little bit of animation techniques in there as well that we just got. So let's show this. So we got Composure. Now if I go, so this is Composure I have open right now. And again, Composure is a technical communications tool to make assembly manuals, to make repair manuals, operation manuals. It has a lot of different uses, as like creating images or creating SVG files for websites and things like that. So vector and raster content. But if I go and I say I want to open, and I'm going to navigate into the vault here, and let's pull in, you know, I got a Composure file. Instead of just showing a canned Composure file, let's actually pull in the SOLIDWORKS. It's going to take a minute, but we are doing good on time. So I'm going to import the entire SOLIDWORKS assembly. I already have it checked out. Let's merge that into a new document. I always like to do that. And I want to make sure this is the new option here. So you want to make sure this is checked out. It says import Pmi. It says overwrite color. Don't worry about that. I mean, you can always change the color after you import it. So let's go and open it. Again, this might take a minute and a half, but I think it's worth showing this live because it is it's really cool how this works. So basically, what I'm doing here is I'm opening up a SOLIDWORKS assembly that has Pmi applied to it. Now, if you have, and Pmi is product material information, and that is these annotations here. And that can be dimensions, that can be notes, that can be annotations. There's a lot of different things Pmi means, and Composure brings it in. So you're not just tied to notes, right? But once you import it, oh, by the way, that can be at the part level or assembly level. So if you have parts, you can pull that in as well. So don't think it's just assemblies. So there's no limitation there. Now, if I have it in Composure, you see everything's in 3D space. I can create views. I can change my rendering style, something like that. You know, so I mean, I can still do everything that I should be able to do in Composure. I can even move these. And let's say that something didn't quite attach, or maybe for whatever reason, I see a lot of little funny, like see this, there's a big gap there. Unfortunately, we can't fix that gap. That was driven by SOLIDWORKS. So maybe in SOLIDWORKS, I go into SOLIDWORKS and I change that leader style. I might be able to get that to work here. But that is the one limitation that I found now currently. And again, this is a brand new feature. So of course, there's going to be limitations out of the box initially, and we'll find those and we'll get them fixed. But you can't like adjust, you can't change the kind of leaders or anything like that. You can't change the text. It is permanent. That is controlled by SOLIDWORKS. You change it there and you'd update it, and it would update here. But I can change the color. Say I want to change the color of that, I can take this guy, I can move it. So let's say that, you know, I was like, oh, I want that to actually point like closer at, I don't know, that hole right there or something like that. So you can move it. And you can also define color per view. So I can say, hey, in this step, that's really important. But in this next step, we have, you know, this guy is the one that we want to focus on. And this one, I'm going to gray it out because we want it there. We just don't want it to be real apparent or something like that. And we want to bring attention to that one right there. You can also specify that, you know, per view, we have things that are hidden or shown. So if I go to the collaboration tab, this is a brand new, by the way, collaboration, that is anything two-dimensional. So that's any of your 2D stuff that comes over into Composure. Composure is both 3D and 2D. So we have our 3D assembly, which will come into play here in just a minute, where we'll go into there. And then we have our 2D, basically 2D tree, 2D assembly here. And the Pmi data is here. So this is all the Pmi data that came in with Composure. So if I go ahead and say, or came in with SOLIDWORks into Composure, and if I go and turn those off, I can create a view without those. So you can define, what is on and what's off and what color it is and what position it is per view. And that's all in 3D space. So it's a lot of really good uses there. And of course, a lot of potential for future uses and kind of opens up doors for additional enhancements. Like, it'd be nice to be able to adjust the leaders, or it'd be nice to just maybe modify that text a little bit, or, so it's a really good step in the right direction. And it's something initially that I'm really happy with. Okay, and let's talk about the 3D library. So, oh, you know what? Before I do that, let's just one little more on Pdm here. So, because we opened it from Pdm, but you'll see that there's a tab for Pdm in Composure. And now, which is awesome, right? We could check this in. We can show that there's the data card, right? So we can actually write. This just doesn't have the Pmi data, but we could add Pmi data to actually write into the cards. We got a data card just like for inspection, but for Composure, and I can check this into the vault, and I can say, this is here's the assembly that we have checked out, but then we can also check in the SOLIDWORks, or the actual not only the SOLIDWORks data, but the physical Composure SMG file, which is awesome, because before we could put that in the vault, we could kind of manually rev control, but it was a generic file. Now we can say, hey, I want to check out the SMG, I want to check it back in. And so any users that aren't technically, maybe not SOLIDWORks users, they're Composure users, they can still utilize the vault just like engineering can with their Composure data to check that in and out. So it's really, really cool. By the way, I'd have to take this SMG and save it into the vault first before I could do that. But okay, yeah. So that is. Oh, I'm sorry. That's it for the first two. But let's talk about these two guys. So first, let's talk about locking views, and then we'll get into the 3D library tools here. So what I can do. Let me show this kind of a couple different ways here. So I've always been able to, well, not always, but for the past couple of years, we've been able to create what we'll call locking events on a view. So you can lock, like, oh, I don't want to be able to pan or zoom. And you turn those on, but then you go into the model and you're like, oh, I can still rotate, I can still pan, or wrong button, still pan, I can still zoom. So what do these actually do? Well, these are assuming that you're going to be using the player, or you turn design mode off here, and you can see now I can rotate, but I can't pan and I can't zoom. So that's what those do there. That's not what's new in 2018, 19. I think this was in 17 when that came out. Now what I can do is I can take any view and I can right click it, and I can say lock views. And to unlock, it's a right click unlock, of course. But what this now enables me to do is it doesn't stop me from adjusting the view, which is actually, at first I was thinking, well, that's silly. But then I'm like, that's actually a really good thing, because I want to be able to go in and I want to be able to zoom in and maybe pull another view off of this. And if it was locked, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so right now I can zoom in, I can change something, I can create a new view. But what I can't do is I can't update this one that has a lock on it. See, update has been disabled. I can update this one, but this one I can't. So really, you can come through and it looks like you can adjust it, but you can't. You can't actually change it. So anything you change, you have to either discard or create a new view of. But that view now is locked in stone, which is great, because let's say that you change all the colors and reposition things, set your neutral properties, and you're like, this is my view that I want to control after I do an update. Then you can lock it down, and that view will never change. It will change if you update, if it's tied to that update, but nobody can manually go in and change that view until it's unlocked. So really, really, really good addition there. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and I'm very honest with my opinions, right? So this came out, and I'm still kind of on the fence if I'm really, it's cool, but are we going to use it? I'm not sure, but we'll show it, because it is really neat, and some of you might think it's a good thing, but I'm kind of on the fence. It is the 3D library. So if I go to the model browser here, I have all these 3D tools. If you've ever worked with me, you know that I prefer to use the image library and take in, like, you know, a screwdriver or hammer. I like to use the 2D panels just because they're easy, they're quick. You can set them aside, you can do leaders and things like that, and it's just simple drag and drop. You're dealing in 2D space instead of 3. So that's kind of always been my preferred method. But now SOLIDWORKS has come out with these 3D tools, which is like, okay, it's actually pretty cool, but it's just it adds a little bit of complexity that maybe is unnecessary, but maybe that's what you want. So let's show it. So let's say I wanted to bring in wrench, right? I take this wrench, I take and I drag and I bring it in. Now the thing, that disappeared because I didn't save the view, but the thing to note when you do this is it's actually importing. So it's the same thing as doing an open merge into current document. So I have my wrench, so it turns on assembly selection mode. There's the wrench there. If I turn it on, I can take it, I can move it around. Just remember, it is a 3D object in 3D space. So, you know, you just have to have a little bit of control with it. And so if I do like this here, I can go ahead and maybe put this, say there was a bolt there or something like that, and I can maybe bring it through and show it. Now you're in 3D space, so it might not be lined up, right? So you gotta have to kind of move it around. So that's the only thing that you know, because it is 3D, you just have to have a little bit more control with it. But it is really cool, all these different tools. So looking through these tools, we got, you know, a screwdriver. Oh, look, there's a bunch of bolts. Not really sure what that would be used for, but I got a hammer, I got a hand. The hand is pretty cool if you want to point at stuff, level, and, you know, just look through this. And there's some really good models. You just drag and drop, and you can use this in your production. So yeah, it's a really cool feature. Just a little bit harder to use than the 2D elements. So I'd suggest, if you're brand new to Composure, probably don't look at this yet. But if you are an advanced user, you've been using it for a while, and you have full control over the 3D space, I'd say, yeah, go ahead and bring these in, because they are neat, and they do present well in the final publication. Okay, so that wraps it up for what I had on the agenda. We do have about 10 minutes left, so what I'll do is I want to open it up for questions at this time. I do want to show, I'll show one additional little thing I had kind of set aside just in case we had a little bit of time in Composure that's new. And I'll go ahead and I'll show that. If any questions come in, we can answer the questions, and then we'll just open it for some general Q&A after that. Let me go and show that real quick. So the timeline I need to turn on, and what this is, it's a workshop, and it's been here for a little bit. If you might have seen this, it is the animation library. What they've changed it to templates, and they've just, in my opinion, they've made it like work. So it's been there for a while, but it's been kind of difficult to work with. Now it's just simple to work with. It's actually pretty cool. So for instance, if I go forward in time here, I can go ahead and I can do an automated animation. Let's say like on that guy on this guy right there, right, just that part. So what this is saying is, it's saying there's a grouping and there's an animation. So my grouping, I can either do a highlight, so it's going to like highlight and bring users' attention to that, or it's going to motion, which is going to move it. I can do both. I could do a highlight then move if I wanted to, or I can do an animation. I can do an enhance or focus, validation, warning. If you thumb through those, they're all similar, but they have a different way of like pulsating and changing the model so you can see it, like changing it to red and things like that. So if I said, well, I want this to highlight, and it's going to enhance it, so it's going to light up, and then I have my settings here, and I say, it's going to, when it flashes, it's going to flash red. It's going to start at 0 at the time I have in my timeline, and then it's going to end. It's going to repeat 4 times, right? So if I go ahead and say create, it creates the animation. Now if I hit play, it does that, and it shows me it really like brings your attention, enhances it, and lights it up. So it's just a really cool way to say, hey, this is about to move. And then there's some other tools in here that allow you to actually move it. So now if I said that I wanted to motion, we're going to, let's unscrew it. I just want to make sure that I go in the right direction. So this is blue there, which is Z. And so we'll go ahead and say, yep, we'll do that. And we just want to make sure that it's actually going to go on the Z axis, which it is right there. And it should be positive, so that actually should work. Now if I play it, I think it should highlight, oh, wrong axis, whatever. It's all good. Oh, I was doing the z-axis of my, not the z-axis of the models, doing the z-axis of the environment here. But actually the point to all this and what's actually new is the ability to update it. So you see that update motion before, basically, I mean, it was kind of an update. You basically had to start over. You had to go in there, you had to delete, and you had to recreate. And it was kind of, it was difficult to work with. So now I said, oh, that's not the, and I didn't make that, maybe I made that accident on purpose, maybe I did, subconsciously. So now I can go ahead and say, I can adjust that and click it, and I can update this motion. So now I can change, instead of the z-axis, let's do, it's got to be the x. Let's do x here, like that, and we'll change this to 0. That's for the translate, and then for the rotate axis is going to be on the x as well. Let's try that. I'll set that to 0. All right, now I'm going to update. Now I'm going to play back, see what it does. Lights up, rotates. Ooh, yeah, there we go. It is better. My axis is a little bit off, but oh, I know why. It's because this model isn't modeled directly on the axis. It's actually a little bit, the model itself is kind of at an angle, so that's what's happening there. Okay, so that is what's new for Tech Comms. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for attending, and we will talk to you soon.